Hi, we're going to look at creating a line plot using a set of numbers provided. We have part of the line created here, but some missing parts in between here because we're dealing with fractions of numbers as well. Here's our set of data that we are going to change into the line plot to make it easier to read. You might see here there's 3.5, 5.5, 4.5. So we need to include the half point on the number line. So there's 3 and 4. So hopefully you know halfway. There's 3.5 between 4 and 5. Halfway, 4.5 between 5 and 6. 5.5. Now there's a couple of ways of doing this. I'm just going to go to the first number on the line plot, 3, and I'm going to count up how many threes I see here. And every time I see one, I'm just going to circle it to show that I've counted it. 1, 2, 3. So for the number 3, I've got 3 x's I need to put on the line plot. Next up is 3.5, which we've added in. Again, just go through your line plot looking for that number 3.5, and we have one of them, so I put 1x. Next up, number 4. Again, go through. You've got 1, 2, 3. Only 3 times we see the number 4. Put in 3 x's. Try and keep them all on the same line you're going across. For 4.5 now, again, go and count up 1, 2, 3. So put in 1, 2, 3. Next up, we have 5. 1, 2, 3. So put in 3 x's. As best you can, try and keep them in a line across. And then our last one, well, 5.5, we have 1, 2, 3. So again, put in your 3 x's. Now we have the number 6 here, but as we can see, we can check anyway. There's no number 6 here, so we just leave that blank. If the number doesn't appear in your data set above, then you don't include it. You just ignore it. Okay, for next example, similar type of steps. Again, between the numbers, the whole numbers 4 and 5, 5 and 6, 6 and 7, you might have to partition or include the fraction parts. We can see here we're dealing with quarters, 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, and various points. So I'm going to fraction or divide this into 4 equal parts between the whole numbers. So there's the half point. If I half that again and half this, I now have 4.25, 4 2/4, 4 3/4, and then 5. I do the same here. If I go, when I'm quartering between the whole numbers, I'll just do half point first, and then half of this, and that'll give me a quarter, and then half of this, and that'll give me the other quarter. 5.25, 5 2/4, 5 3/4. Similar here for 6 and 7. Go to the halfway point, and half this, which is about there. It's not perfect. Then half this. So I've got 6.25, 6 2/4, 6 3/4. Again, we'll start with the number 4 first on the number line. Go through and count. You've got 1, 2, 3. So we'll put in 3 x's above 4. 1, 2, 3. Now I've got 4.25, and I go through and I don't see any. So when you don't see it, you leave it blank, no x's. 4 2/4, and going through, there's 1, only 1. So I'll put 1x above that. 4 3/4. Going through, I see 1 there, I see 2, so put in 2 x's. Now the number 5, going through, nothing for 5. 5.25 is next. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3, so I can put 3 x's above 5.25. 5 2/4, I see 1 there, so I can put 1 in. There's nothing else. 5 3/4, going through, there's 1, there's 2, so I can put 2 x's. For the whole number 6, I look here, I've got 1 there, put 1 above the 6. 6 1/4, I got 1 there, 2, so I can put 2 x's above that. 6 3/4, Well, you can see here there's 6 2/4, but there's nothing there. We can see what's left the way that I'm circling it, and I've got 6 3/4 is the only one left, so I could just put that in. Now, with the exam, I'm not sure if you'll have to put in the lines in between, but it's good practice. It'll help you with the understanding. So practice question 3, similar type. We've got 4. From here, we've got 4 to 7. We need to fill in some of the parts in between because we're dealing with fractions here, to 1 and 2/4 and so on and 3/4. So we're going to partition this into quarters again. Go to the halfway point between the 4 and the 5, and go to the halfway point of this, go to the halfway point of that, and there you have your quarters. Similar here, go to the halfway points, fill them in, doesn't have to be perfect. Again, between 6 and 7, halfway between that, 6 1/4, 6 2/4, 6 3/4. So I think you get it by now. We'll count up the first number, number 4. We've got 1, 2, 3, 3x's. 4 1/4 is next on the number line. I don't see any there, so nothing. 4 2/4, I see 1, 2, 3, nothing else, so I can put 3x's. Sorry, should be over here, 4 2/4. Just be careful of that. 4 3/4, I look through, I don't see anything. Whole number 5, I'm looking through, and I think that's the first one and only one. 5 1/4, there's 1, there's 2. 5 2/4, nothing. 5 3/4, nothing. The number 6, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. 6 1/4, we've got 1 here at the start, and this is the next one. 2 of them, so put in 2 x's. 6 2/4, we have 1 of those. 6 3/4, we have 1 of those. Okay, so that's creating your line plots, which I believe is possibly a 5 to 8 point or 8 marks in the exam. So yeah, good luck with it.